All right, we're ready to roll. Thank you for being here both in person and online. Tonight's talk is movement and how it affects your brain. So we're going to be talking about locomotion, backwards motion, all the motions. All right, but on a serious note, I want you guys to understand that my goal with this is to help your friends and family. Yes, I want you to get better, but I want you to find somebody else and give them some of this knowledge to help them understand what they can do to help themselves and how important this is and why we see major issues the more sedentary we are, or the less we move, the bigger the problems can actually show up. So I want you to guess what would be the most ever bought drug if it existed. If it existed, what? Happiness drug? That's a pretty good answer.
Pain relief.
Pain relief drug? So the answer is actually motion or movement would be the most productive drug ever produced because it literally changes what you guys are talking about. If you want happiness, it will affect that. If you want pain relief, it'll affect that. If you want help with anxiety and depression, it will help with that. It literally helps with the majority of the issues that ail us. So what we want to look at is how is our movement, how is our alignment with our environment related to what's going on with our brain and how it perceives ourselves. So what we need to understand is that movement itself determines brain function. So if movement decreases, brain function decreases. If movement increases, brain function increases. So movement is a direct correlative. That means one-to-one. That means the more you do moving, the better your brain works. The less you do moving, the worse your brain works. And there's different parts of the brain we're going to talk about, but the key is to understand movement is the big kahuna. So the brain's job, because of movement, is to do very specific things. Its job is to know where it is in space, where the body is going, and to predict what it's going to encounter. So basically, with movement, we need to know where we are in space. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but I'll give you an example of what happens if we don't know where we are in space. Has anybody ever got the spins, the bed spins, or the spins, or dizziness, or vertigo, or any of that? That's when your body doesn't know where it is in space. It's literally trying to figure out what's going on. When you have that, the part of your brain that's job is to control movement is weak, and that's going to be your cerebellum. The little brain, its job is to control how you experience space, how you experience your body moving. So if your body knows where it is in space and where it is going, that's going to be really good. So it literally means your brain has to know if there's a rock, how to step up and move to the rock. If there's a tree, to move around the tree. So it's a lot of perception, and we're going to get that through different bits of information, but it also is going to predict what we're going to run into. So that's why we have different funny experiences where we think something's really heavy, we try to pick it up and then it's light, or it's light and it's really heavy, and that's our predictive experience of what we think is going to happen. Or the ones that I like, I don't know if you guys have seen this, they're on X, which is where they draw pictures in the street that look like holes, and people will walk up to it and they'll literally think they're going to fall in because it's so realistic that it looks like that. So that's predictive. They're thinking there's something there, even though it's not there, just because of the perception of what's going on. So when we are perceiving, seeing what's going on, we're using very specific interpretation or information to determine what's going on. What we're going to use is proprioception. So what that means is that's a bunch of big words for where are my joints and my muscles in space. Now, this is really, really important because, and this is a lot of what chiropractic and the chiropractic adjustment is based on, because depending on the information coming in from proprioception determines the information that comes out. So they've shown through research studies, Dr. Heidi Havoc out of New Zealand, has shown that if you're subluxated, that segment is out of position, that means it can literally affect everything from smell, taste, touch, lead to changes in sight, all because of one segment being out of alignment, and it doesn't have to be in the neck. So this explains why, I'm not sure if you're aware, what the first chiropractic adjustment actually did. Is anybody aware of what the first chiropractic adjustment actually did and what changed? Any ideas? Nope. So what happened was there was this fellow named D.D. Palmer. And D.D. Palmer lived in Davenport, Iowa. And he had a janitor, and his janitor was in a crook position, heard a pop, and then went deaf. And he was deaf for 15 years before D.D. ran into him. He communicated with him, figured out he was deaf, and he goes, well, let's see if there's any part of his spine that's out of alignment. And this is very rudimentary. So he got him, had him put his head on a chair and pushed on his upper back twice, and his hearing came back. That's what the first adjustment actually did. So you say, okay, well, how did that work? Well, if the information coming into the brain is not correct, it won't interpret everything correct. So if you don't know where you are in space, it will not work correctly. So what is the newest thing that I'm doing in the office, trying to make sure that you know where you are in space? Has anybody, if you haven't, it's the balance testing where I'm actually having you stand one foot in front of the other, crossing your arms. And if you can do it with eyes open, that's good. That means you can use your ankles, your eyes, and your ears. But the eyes have a reflex called the writing reflex that everybody uses to keep their balance. So have we ever heard about as we age, we can become more clumsy, we might hurt ourselves, we might fall. That happens because as we age, the proprioception or the proscenium corpuscles, basically little feeling nerves that are in your ankles, they start to degenerate after the age of 50. So you have to put more information in to get them working better. So to get the brain to get the same stimulation when you're 18, if 1 mile gave you full stimulation, now over the age of 50, you need 2. So more movement as you age is actually what keeps your brain healthy. But if we don't, we stay at the same or we stay sedentary, then what will happen is we'll not get that information into the brain. And if we don't get that information into the brain, we won't actually be able to adapt correctly. So where was I going with that one? Proscenium corpuscles, movement, aging. Oh yeah. So basically, we need to move more as we age to keep our body healthy. So joint stability is really, really, really important. The chiropractor's job is to literally stimulate the brain. And the brain's job is to do what? Perceive where the body is in space, know where the body is going, and know how the body will interpret the environment. So if we look at it, when we adjust you, that's where I was going. We got the little brain back here. This is the cerebellum. It controls movement. When we adjust you, the cerebellum gets stimulated and the frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex, all of that gets stimulated. Now, if you've listened to some of the stuff I've been talking about recently, where does fight or flight hang out? What part of the brain? Do you remember?
It's in the midbrain, isn't it?
Midbrain and brainstem, correct. So brainstem is fight or flight. Brainstem controls heart rate. Brainstem controls respiration rate. Brainstem will go with blood sugars. All these things will get regulated. Now, if the cerebellum is weak, the brainstem can take over. And if it takes over, and the frontal lobe is weak specifically, both of them, and it takes over, then we get fight or flight to turn on. So fight or flight turns on, and then whatever you're genetically predisposed to turn on is what you get to turn on. So if you're somebody that when fight or flight turns on, you get anxious, you turn on anxiety. If you're somebody that when you get stressed out, you turn on blood sugar issues, you get blood sugar issues, diabetes, hyperglycemia, different things like that. Back to the proscenium corpuscles. The movement stimulates the little part of the brain. If we're not moving 2 miles instead of 1, now our brain is more prone to going into fight or flight. Now we're more prone to be that angry old man because we're not moving as much, so we can't down-regulate the fight or flight response. Is that making sense? So movement is literally to make the cerebellum and frontal lobe work correctly. The adjustment literally affects that. Those are the major areas that they affect. But the adjustment is not about a pop or a click. It's about stimulating the brain to see where it is in space so that you can perceive the environment correctly. Because if you can perceive it correctly, then what you thought was stressful isn't stressful anymore. So, example, when I first started all this neural work, we had a test called the stress response evaluation. And in that test, a dentist trill would play. And we would do that multiple times. You do this roof, 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 dogs barking, and then jackhammers, kids screaming, and then a dentist drill. Well, when I was a kid, I did not like the feeling of anesthetic on my mouth. So I got dental work done with no anesthetic my whole life because I did not like, I'd rather deal with the pain than the feeling of my mouth being numb and not being able to move. So what happened is my body made correlations. Dentist drill equals pain. Or you can see correlations in traffic accidents. Black car equals pain. And then every time you see a black car, you have a panic attack. And we see this. Your body takes the environmental information, the brain takes the information and says that equals that. And whenever that comes into my life, problems will come into my life. And we'll see this correlation. I'll get back to my stuff, but I'll show you more. We'll see this correlation where, say you had a bad experience with alcohol, and whenever you smell that alcohol, you get nauseous. Or say you had a bad experience with a certain perfume that a person was wearing, that person was mean, and then every time you smell that perfume, you get angry. And it's because you correlate that stimulation. So what happened to me is that drill would go off at least 3 or 4 times a day when we were doing tests, and I would literally feel my hands get sweaty. So I would go into fight or flight because I heard that drill from a trauma that I had when I was 6. And we had to break that. So I had to break that pattern. So we desensitized it. We can play the drill while I'm learning to breathe, and then we can desensitize it. Or we can just stimulate up the cerebellum and the frontal lobe, and it will cause the brain to calm down. So that movement allows me to desensitize from the triggers that push us. So that's why you hear somebody say, well, if somebody wears red shoes, those are just mean people. And what they're telling you is my brain correlated red shoes, that smell, that look to trauma. Now, whenever that comes around, because it's making meaning out of it. It's trying to figure out, why did this happen? Why did the trauma happen? Why did I get hurt? And it makes meaning out of it so you don't get hurt again. So that's that brain perception. But what would happen if you're subluxated and you can't see the world correctly? Then you can make meaning out of things that are not meaningful.
You should be, because you're not connected with me.
Does that make sense?
Unless you just knocked yourself out of it.
We
I
need
didn't
to
knock myself
mute
out.
some stuff there,
I'm
Sylvie.
in, but I don't have any volume.
Thank you. All right. So if we look at this, what determines where we predict where we are in space? Joint proprioception. So that's where your joints are, arms, legs, all that stuff. But the ones that are most important that determine the biggest stuff for you is your ankles, your jaw, as well as your spine. It determines where you are in space. So there's been studies showing in chiropractic, back to the fellow BJ Palmer, and he had pre and post x-rays of what would happen. And he had people come in that would have jaw pain and scoliosis, and he adjusted them, and literally they'd watch decreases in scoliosis because the jaw would change. And that's because the input would go into the cerebellum, change the proprioception, the output, and then the cerebellum would actually realign itself. So we have joint position. That's really important. The next one that's going to determine where we know we are in space is your vestibular system. So the vestibular system is the one that lets you know literally your XYZ coordinates of what's going on. What are the main data points that it uses for this? eyes, inner ear, and cerebellum. And cerebellum integrates that other stuff that I was talking about. Well, what happens, and this is now you're going to start understanding why we do the tests we do, if your eyes don't track correctly. That means now you're going to be prone to vestibular issues, like getting car sick when you're in a car, because your eyes can't deal with the body working correctly. And the vestibular is directly, that has the same nucleus, is directly attached to the nucleus that controls digestion. And that's why if it goes off, you get that nausea feeling. So if it's weak there, it'll try to polarize or work better, and then it will cause that issue. And then the last one that we have is visual input. So we got eyes as in figuring out where it is for vestibular, but eye movements itself. So if we look at what we're trying to do, if we're trying to help stabilize, we want to help you stabilize where your jaw is, where your neck is, where your ankles are. It's called the spinocerebellar tract. That determines how you see where you are in space, movement oriented. We also want to have our eyes move correctly in space and our inner ear. So if we want to train this, we want to train all these things at the right place. So this is why when you come in, you always get adjusted first to make sure that your spine is communicating to your cerebellum so you know where you are in space proprioceptively. Then we can train you with your, let's say, inner ear by having you stand and move your head side to side while looking at an object. So that's going to be inner ear and eyes. Or if we want to get really hard, we can have you stand. And if you are weak, this will cause nausea. Move it where you move your eyes opposite to where your head is going. So that's inner ear one way, eyes opposite way, balance all at once. That's all vestibular training. So that's what we'll do in the office in conjunction with, say, a laser to upregulate the cerebellum or upregulate the vestibular at the same time to give it more ATP or energy. And with that movement, we'll be able to integrate the environment correctly. Does that make sense? So with that movement, we're going to see upregulation in specific factors that make our body work better. So when we move, what are the things that go up? Oxygen level goes up, heart rate goes up, utilization of blood sugar goes up. We see all those things, right? But there are also other things that go up in conjunction with this. Has anybody heard of BDNF before? BDNF is what everybody wants to have. It's brain-derived neurotrophic factor. There's a bunch of big words for makes nerves connect and stay healthy. So it's basically the fertilizer for the brain. Well, BDNF goes up with movement. So when you move, it increases the connectivity ability of the brain because of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. The other thing that's going to go up is dopamine. So that's motivation to finish things. And you'll also have norepinephrine go up. So that's going to be your focus. So I'm sure a lot of us have experienced wake up kind of groggy, go for a walk, and then all of a sudden everything starts getting better. That's because you're stimulating all of those things. You're stimulating your cerebellum, which will then upregulate your frontal lobe, which will then turn on those neurotransmitters, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, dopamine, norepinephrine, and it will improve all of these functions. But what we need to understand is not all movement is equal. Certain movements are going to get better results than other movements. So just off the top of your head, what kind of movements do you think are going to be better than other ones? Any ideas? Put out any ideas. Arms up. Walking, yeah. So what we're going to look at is big perspective here. So big perspective, what's better? Novel movements, things that we don't usually do. So like Brooke had said, arms above our head. How often do we do this during the day? I know I only do this when I play sports. Most people don't do it at all. So if you do arm movements above your head, it will actually stimulate your brain more than anything else below. That's directly correlated to grip strength, directly correlated to longevity. The more things you do above your head, the better your brain will actually function. The more grip things you do above the head, the better your brain will function. So you're like, so doc, you're telling me if I just do jumping jacks, I'll get better? Yes, but I can't do jumping jacks. Cool. Well, then put your hands up and just grip or wave side to side or wave back and forth. Do circles. Anything like that will actually stimulate your brain more because you're doing something it is not used to. I'll give you another way that this happens. If you drive to work or walk to work the same way every day, does it become so normalized in your brain that you forget even what you're doing? But what if you take a new path? You're aware of everything. And that is the novelty effect. That's why when we go on vacation, oh, it's the best thing ever. I experienced this and this. And it's because you're experiencing new things. It's novel. You're getting more of that dopamine, that norepinephrine. You're getting more of that brain-derived neurotrophic factor. You're literally in this experience and you're happy because of the new. It's literally just because of the new. So the new helps your brain grow more. So that's why if you're like, well, I want to keep my brain plastic. That's why funny things like, okay, you're going to brush your teeth, brush it on one leg. That's new. Do everything with your left hand. That's new. Walk backwards to the front door. That's new. These are all adaptive things that the brain is going to have to work to, and it's fun. So as you do these, it helps the brain become more adaptive, and you'll get more of those growth factors. Does it make sense? So we got novelty, then we got coordination. So we have to do multiple things like cross crawl, racket sports, different things like that, table tennis, whatever you're doing. The more that you're moving in coordination, the better you're going to do. Walking and running is good, but skipping is better than walking. Walking backwards is better than walking forwards. Walking backwards is better than skipping because that's something we don't do at all. Walk backwards, really, really important for the brain. Now, if you can't do it without falling, please don't do it. But if you really want to stimulate and you're like, well, I can't do backwards, do sideways. People don't do sideways much at all. They've shown that sports like tennis and hockey have increased longevity in the brain because of the lateral movement. So the more lateral movement, the more above head things you do, the stronger your brain is because there are novel effects that you don't usually do with your normal day. Your normal day is this, forward. Side to side is different. So if you want to help your brain get better, walking side to side in your house is going to be extremely stimulatory compared to walking front and back. Hands above your head is very stimulatory and then challenging. So is it going to be challenging to do whatever movement you're going to do? That's the goal. Is it easy to walk? Yes. But is it harder to walk on your tippy toes? Yes. So you're going to want to make it novel. You're going to want to make it more about coordination, and you're going to want to make it challenging. So what kind of things can we do? Well, cross-body movements, such as crawling, marching, and tennis, are going to be very productive for you. So marching. Now, what we taught in school, an easy way to stimulate your brain and get the whole brain turned on is when you march, make your wrist touch every joint on the opposite side of your body. So ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, elbow, wrist. Ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, elbow, wrist. And when you do that, you'll literally feel your brain get stimulated because you're stimulating things that you don't usually touch. You'll touch hand to hands, but you're not going to be touching shoulders, hips, and all that stuff. And it helps your corpus callosum, the middle part of your brain, and the homunculus, as well as the cerebellum, stimulate. So that's an easy way to keep your brain active. It's literally brain flossing. It's making sure hands above your head, side to side movements, touching opposite sides of your body. Then, if you want to do even bigger ones, we're going to look at balance drills. So things like walking on uneven ground, so walking on the ground instead of sidewalks. Now, if you have balance issues, please don't do that, but if you can, do that. The balancing on single leg stuff is really good. So this is why when we start you, we're starting you on two legs, but feet in tandem. If you want to get really good, then it's close your eyes and can you do it on one leg? And can we do it on both legs? And you'll find one is stronger than the other. The one that's wobbling more is telling you that's the ankle that needs work. Because the inner ear and the eyes don't change. The ankles are the ones that are changing. Then we can also do, to help with stimulating the brain, head and eye movements. So simple tracking, look at your finger, turn your head side to side, look up and down. If it gets blurry at all, go slower. This is inner ear eye coordination. This by itself will change everything. Understanding balance is rudimentarily the starting aspect of how you experience the world. So if your balance is off, everything else is harder. If your balance is good, everything else gets better, including your immune system, including your thought process, everything. And then we can get to complexity such as dance, drumming, walking to beats, different things like that. So what I'm showing you here is using the stimulation, such as the adjustment to make you in alignment, and then doing the activities, standing on one foot, moving your head watching, doing movements, rhythmic movements to music. This is all going to help improve how the brain functions and perceives the world, thus allowing you to feel calm. Because this literally goes hand in hand. If you don't know where you are in space, then you don't know where to predict what's going to happen, and that will literally cause anxiety. And that anxiety will cause fight, flight, and it will cause a plethora of issues. You know where you are in space, now your body feels calm, and you know how to move forward. And you don't have that same anxiety. You don't have that fight or flight. You don't have the blood sugar, cortisol, insulin. All these funkies don't happen. So the big thing we want to understand is, if there's one takeaway, make sure your eyes, inner ear, cerebellum work. If you can do that, you're going to be able to function correctly. If they don't work correctly now, guess what? You can train them. Where you are, you can go forward. It doesn't mean you're stuck there. If you want to age healthy, this is the big kahuna. Cerebellum, inner ear, eyes, that movement is going to determine how well you age or don't age. And so that training will help you immensely. Do you have any questions, ladies? We don't have to. Nope. Okay, we're all good. So my hope and my prayer is that we got something. And so my hope is that if we do anything, we just start doing something a little different. Is it brushing our teeth on one leg? Is it walking sideways? Is it hands above our head? Just moving? What are we going to do to help stimulate ourselves? Is it the crossing? We do one of these things daily, and it will actually help our brain develop and stay in a more stable space. If you want to get even better, integrate the eyes. Eye movements in relation, and you can ask me when you have those questions. So my hope and my prayer is we got one good thing, and we tell a friend about it. So I want to thank you for being here, and have a blessed night.